The 2026 NFL Draft is pretty weak at the running back position. Jeremiah Love is the consensus #1 running back, but after that, it's pretty up in the air on who the second running back off the board is going to be. One player who is in that mix is Washington running back Jonah Coleman. Coleman is a player I was a pretty big fan of in this class over summer, and I think he's quietly becoming one of the more underrated running backs in this draft class. What makes Coleman such a fun prospect, and where do I think he should be taken in the 2026 NFL Draft? That's what we will be going over in today's video. But hey guys, if you guys are new to the channel, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. It helps me out a ton and lets me know that you guys are enjoying the videos. Comment down below which prospects you guys want to see me talk about in a future prospect spotlight, and without further ado, let's get into it. Jonah Coleman was a 3-star recruit in the 2022 recruiting class who committed to Arizona. He redshirted as a freshman, but had a pretty strong sophomore season for the Wildcats, finishing with 863 yards and 5 touchdowns. After the success of Arizona, head coach Jedd Fisch left to take the head coaching spot at Washington, and Jonah Coleman followed, and it's where he spent the last 2 seasons. In 2024, Coleman had career highs across the board. He had 1,060 yards, 10 touchdowns, 67 missed tackles forced, and also had 177 yards through the air. In 2025, Coleman has still been very productive, but the numbers have dipped a little bit on the ground. So far, Coleman has 651 yards, 14 touchdowns, 29 missed tackles forced, and 335 receiving yards. He's a very interesting running back who I think has a chance to be a real steal down the draft board. The first thing that sticks out to me when watching Coleman is his elite contact balance and his ability to play through physicality. Coleman has very good footwork for the running back position, and I think he's very good at running with power and trucking over defenders. Throughout his career, Coleman is averaging more than 4 yards after contact. I think he's one of the best short yardage backs in this class because of his ability to put his head down and fight for extra yardage. His legs never stop moving, and I think that will suit him well at the next level. I also think his frame plays a big role into that. Coleman is 5'9", 228 pounds, and he's got the ideal frame you look for in one of the bigger, chain-moving type of backs at the next level. I also think Coleman has very good vision for the position. He's a really smart runner who I think sees rushing lanes open up and shows the ability to hit cutback lanes and make nice plays. We mentioned the footwork being a positive, and this is where I believe it's at its best. He's pretty shifty and very light on his feet, which I think shows when he moves laterally. He's got great lateral quickness, and I think it allows him to hit these lanes at a pretty consistent clip, and it also allows him to bounce runs outside, where I think he's been a pretty productive player throughout his college career. I think Coleman is a very creative runner with elite vision, which is exactly what NFL teams are looking for. Ball security is also something that has been a very big strength for Coleman throughout his career. Coleman has just 1 career fumble. He doesn't put the ball on the ground, and he knows how to take care of the football. I also think Coleman is going to be a pretty strong contributor on passing downs. He's one of the best blocking backs in the entire class. He's got such a strong lower body, and he's able to hold his ground, and he showed the ability to win one-on-one matchups against blitzing linebackers or stunting defensive ends. I also think he can be a weapon in the receiving game, where once again, Coleman has been productive. He has just 1 drop in his entire career, and I think he's really solid after the catch. My only holdup with Coleman as a receiving option is going to be the route running. When Coleman runs routes out of the backfield, it's a lot of shallow crossers or setups on screens, and we just haven't seen him be asked to run a very diverse route tree. I'd love to see him, run wheel routes and run different types of formations, but I think he's still a good overall receiver. The overall receiving upside may be a little bit limited though. We do have to address the elephant in the room when talking about Coleman, and ultimately why Coleman is probably going to go later than he should, and it is his speed. While I like the first step and I think the lateral agility is pretty solid, Coleman doesn't have very good speed, and it will probably run in the mid 4.5s. And unfortunately, I think it shows on tape. He really gets slowed up at the second level. He gets tracked down often, and he doesn't have the ability to consistently outrun defensive backs. I think that's pretty concerning, and it more than likely will get Coleman taken later than he should, because he isn't the fastest back, and he doesn't really have this second gear that he can get to. While me personally, I'm not going to lower him too much on my board as a result, I think the league may come in a little bit lower on Coleman than many in the community. Jonah Coleman is one of my favorite running backs in this draft class. I love his power, I love the contact balance, and I think he's got great vision. Even with the lack of top-end speed, I think he provides so much to what NFL teams are looking for, and on top of all of this, I still think he can be a contributor on early downs because he is such a great blocker. He is good as a receiving threat with strong hands, and I still have Jonah Coleman as my number 2 running back in the class. I know he hasn't had the season many people were hoping, but I still think he can be a very good running back and be a guy that can make plays for you, particularly down in the red zone. I have a late second round grade on Coleman as a prospect. In terms of a scheme fit, because of the lack of speed, I don't know that we'll ever view Jonah Coleman as a true number 1 bell cow back, but I very well could see him being a high-end number 2 in an RB by committee sort of room. A lot of teams are going to multiple running back sets, and I think Coleman is a perfect fit for that. I think he can be the running back that gets the early down snaps, and I also think he can be heavily featured in 21 personnel because of his ability to block and catch passes out of the backfield. And I think he can have loads of success in a rotational running back role. My player comparison for Jonah Coleman is Detroit Lions running back David Montgomery. Montgomery feels like the exact same player I watch when I watch Washington. He's a very smart runner with good vision, first step in lateral explosiveness, is a really good power runner, particularly on the short yardage situations, and he's a strong blocker. The only reason I don't think Montgomery is viewed as a consensus top 10 back is because of the lack of a strong second gear and elite speed. But I think Jonah Coleman is nearly identical in each of these ways, and I could see him having a very similar career arc to what we've seen of David Montgomery, who also has been used at his best in an RB by committee sort of situation. Jonah Coleman is a creative runner. He's shifty, he's got good vision, and great size for the running back position. I'm a big fan, and ultimately, I believe that Jonah Coleman will be a top 75 pick in the 2026 NFL Draft.